Hello there. Sorry from 17 once again. This is my Evil Within 2. Nightmare difficulty, no upgrades, no keys, and no damage. This is chapter 3, it's called Residences. And there's going to be 2 videos in this sequence because this is probably the longest mission in the game if you choose to make it that way. So, right at the beginning here, we're being introduced to the crafting that you can do with these workbenches. The best thing you need to know about the crafting, other than the fact that it enables you to get ammunition, is that it also saves whenever you build anything. So, if you want to completely skip having to go into the mirror and hitting that save point to continue onwards, you can just go in, make something on the bench, and then get out of dodge, and you'll be fine. Of course, it's not a hard save, it's technically an autosave. So if you're playing on classic mode, you will have to physically hard save. And you want to be careful with those because you only have 7 of them. And I do recommend, if you are doing a classic road run, that you put one of your saves somewhere in this mission because it's just a good safety point. But if you can avoid it, I would recommend saving before the first boss. If you think about it, the only real challenge coming up in this mission is going to be the fight against the 3 creatures. I don't know the names of them. They're these strange, like, jumping, double-sided men things. And this game doesn't seem to have a bestiary, so I can't find the name of them just yet. But they're pretty tricky. But the great news is they die from 3 shots from an unupgraded shotgun. You have to hit them in the face, or at least be close range for it to work. And there's 3 of them. So that's 9 shells that you're going to need to kill them that way. They are susceptible to being smoked, so you can stun them in the smoke and give yourself breathing room. They are susceptible to being frozen, so you can give yourself even more breathing room. And they are susceptible to being electrocuted. And the strategy that I'm going to show you, you do not need any of that, you just need the shotgun. So that's the only real challenge of the sequence coming up, and the only real thing that I can think of that might get you killed if you're sloppy outside of a bad encounter. But for the most, you should be okay. And you'll notice just then that there's this weird blinking blue signal underneath the truck just then. The reason the game does that is it is a physical manifestation of the signals, I believe. As you walk around, you can turn on your radio, and using it, you can track signals. And signals will lead you to side missions, to little bits of expositional dialogue, and also they'll find little caches of items and ammunition. And this entire sequence is going to be us essentially getting prepared for the rest of the game. So we're going to be finding a lot of powerful things, and we're going to be moving through this little sleepy-looking town and getting stuff done. And my itinerary is to get new weapons, to get some parts, and then to get out of here. But this is a big area, and there is a lot of dangers waiting for you. And because this is such a dynamic section in the game, I can't tell you where all the triggers are. All I can tell you is that at any moment when you are navigating these areas, weird stuff can happen. And it's not weird unintentional stuff like that wonky execution at the beginning of the guide. This is literally designed scary, interesting, atmospheric, tense moments. Moments where enemies will populate where they weren't before. Moments where you'll get trapped by an enemy and suddenly have to face something. Things like that. It gets really creative, and it is arguably the most beautiful part of this game because it's such an interesting concept for survival horror, and I think it's one of the first of its kind and one of the best of that kind. Because if you think about it, you could compare it to something like Silent Hill Downpour or something like that. I completely forgot to come over here, by the way. I think I'm going to go into the garage. I know the garage is a trap, but I've got enough bottles, so it shouldn't be a problem. But for instance, right now, when you're moving, enemies can get up off the floor, and if you don't know where they are, and it's difficult to know where every enemy is because of how dynamic it is, you can put yourself in a bit of a bad spot. But all you need to know here is you're about to get trapped inside this garage with this beast, and I'm going to show you why the bottles are the best item in the game if you can use them. So, she's going to get up when I open this drawer, and I pick up that. Or is it there we go, when I go near the bag. So if you throw a bottle at their head, you can get a stun, and then you can run up and execute, and it is an instant kill. And it looked amazing, and it looked easy, didn't it? You're going to have a love affair with that mechanic, because for us, every time where it works really well, there are times where it doesn't work at all. So my advice is simple. Whenever you see a zombie, they will do an animation where they scream, or they do some kind of, I can see you, I'm coming to kill you animation. It can differ what the animation is, but at any time during the animation, if you throw a bottle and you catch them in the face, it should stun them. There are instances where it hasn't, But the even better solution to this is to wait for them to stop the "I just saw you" animation, and the moment they idle, where they're not moving, throw the bottle then. But you need to bear in mind here, guys, you only get about a second or 2 seconds, and then they start attacking you. And the problem with the bottle mechanic is the same problem there always was. It can be difficult to aim against targets that move this quickly and hit such a specific zone. And then when you do throw it, sometimes you hit them in the face and they shrug it off as if you've not done anything. Because I think that they get some kind of strange priority when they're in animations. Just then, I've proven that you can stun her in that screaming animation, but there are times when it hasn't worked. And I can show you footage, countless footage, of bottles hitting faces and people just not reacting. And it's a little frustrating, and it's definitely got a finesse to it, but it saves ammunition. The great part about this game, however, is if you don't want to mess with the bottle stuff, you could always just run away, break line of sight, hide, and then stab them in the back. But we're moving into the marrow now, a little prematurely, because I'm going to show you where you get the sawn-off shotgun. And the sawn-off shotgun is my favourite shotgun in the game, because I've not been able to get the double-barrel shotgun, because the side mission where you have to protect Julian Sykes, where he's on top of the truck, I think that's the guy's name, there's just too many enemies, and I didn't want to waste my ammunition. But I'm hoping the double barrel's really good, but I can only speak of 2, so that's probably what I'm going to do. Before I start speaking about Silent Hill Home Downpour and the other things I was about to speak about before we got to this sequence, I'm going to tell you about this new enemy. So, in this game, instead of the wonderful Ruvik clones, you're going to come up against something that I've called the Witch. And you can always hear her because she makes a very distinctive scream. And when you get close to her, you're going to get the surprise of your life, because you're going to stab her in the brain and she's going to turn around and it's not going to kill her. This enemy does not die from stealth attacks, you have to do it twice. So you can stab her in the brain, and then you can smack her with an axe, and then that will put her down for good. If you don't have an axe, you can immediately set off by stabbing her, run away, break her line of sight, hide somewhere, and then come back and stab her again and kill her that way. But the easiest and quickest way of getting rid of her is what you just witnessed just then. Fun fact, if you're upgrading your weapons, if you upgrade your Agony Crossbow, and you have the harpoon bolts on, I think it might even be 150% damage or 200% damage, if you shoot her once in the head, it will pop her head. That's the strategy that I was using on my first playthrough. It was really successful. And then I came to recording this walkthrough, and I couldn't do it. Oh, another thing as well, you're going to see me pick up a lot of weapon parts. I, for whatever reason, at the beginning of recording this, didn't think the no upgrades extended to my weapons. So, I just didn't correlate that weapon parts were going to be worthless to me, and I thought that I could still craft ammunition from them. But you can only craft ammunition from the gunpowder. I was just all excited and picking everything up. But you can hear right now something you're going to hear quite a lot, and it's the Lost doing things to other bodies. Normally they bang on them and smash them like this guy's about to do, tearing them to pieces. Very rarely, but not too frequently, thankfully, they can turn around in these animations. It's only ever happened to me once, and it was inside of the dungeon when you have to open that noisy door, and there's the guy kneeling at that altar. For whatever reason, he turned around and just chased me, and I was really pissed off that that happened. But I have to tell you that it can happen, just in case you get unlucky. But here are the frequency doors. So all you have to do is combine the amplitude. You'll have to bear with me, folks. This was, I think, the first time on PC that I'd done this. And it's actually really easy to do this. You kind of just hold one direction until it gets similar, and then you hold the other direction until it lines up. And I was rotating the analogs when I first did this for some reason, and it felt really difficult to me, because I had Arkham in my brain, where I see things like that. Moving the analogs is obviously the key, right? Well, it wasn't, and it was... My first one of those doors on Xbox One was pretty tricky because I didn't read how to do the bloody game. But here comes the sawn-off shotgun. So, I beat the entire game using nothing but the sawn-off on my first run.
Nice.
On my second run, I discovered that you can get a longer shotgun that has more range. The only time that this weapon failed me was against the final boss when I had no other bullets to shoot her, and for whatever reason it didn't have enough range to hit her weak points on her shoulders. So I got a little bit bummed out and a little bit depressed that the weapon wasn't as good as I needed it to be, and it made that fight really difficult. So the moment I got the new shotgun, the long shotgun, the proper shotgun, I didn't use the sawn-off again, and that's a mistake, guys. I'm telling you from experience right now, thanks to the firewalk in Chapter 13. The sawn-off shotgun does the most damage from up close of all the shotguns I've used. Be careful, there's a Lost that's about to get up there. Get in this and it cannot follow you. That's a tip to help you forever, that, guys. If you can change your altitude in any way, you will be undetectable by the Lost. If you climb certain ladders, they can't climb certain ladders. If you go into those holes like that, they will not follow you into any holes. I've never been followed into a hole. So if you can see anything that you can crouch into, you can get full immunity from these creatures. But that's one of the dynamic moments. We make our way back through the Marrows, and they open that elevator door, and boom, 2 more of the enemies to kill. And right now, where they go is entirely up to hit them. And it's kind of unfortunate, because I think this guy might even see me. Oh no, he doesn't. So there's his spazzing back and forth. That's a great opportunity to stab him if you're behind him. But unfortunately, I'm not. So we're going to wait. He's going to turn after this, because he's done his big animation. He's going to go the other way. He's going to pick an animation, and then he's going to come back this way. And that's kind of how they work. We have 2 of them getting quite close right now. He kind of sees me just then. He does see me. Okay. Time to show you what the bottles can really do. This is not easy to do, though, guys. This takes some practice, so just do this stealth. Don't get spotted like I did. Be more patient. Stab them both in the head. It'll save your bottles, but this is, this is a very dynamic game. When it kicks off, I'm going to try and win, and that's exactly what I did. But there you go. Bottles are amazing once you get good with them, but it's very difficult to get good with them because the game seems to just want to change the rules all the time with how they work. But now we get to move out of the Marrow, and we can go back into the city, and we can go and continue exploring and continue expanding our arsenal as I get knackered. And yeah, folks, I was watching some Evil Within 1 last night. That game is so much faster than this game. Everything about it is faster. You walk faster, you sprint faster, you move so much better in that game, in my opinion. They really slowed it down to make it a bit more methodical, a bit more laborious, a little bit more like a Western game rather than a Japanesey one. And I think that's kind of unfortunate, because I really like the movement speed in the first game. And the stamina regeneration in the first game is incredible too. This game hates players, it really does. I thought they'd fix the sprinting, because you could now sprint for the full bar, but you do not regenerate the same. Like, I watched a bit of my walkthrough for the old guide. I'm running circles around enemies with stamina coming back almost immediately, and that does not work that way on this one. And it's such a shame, but they're both great games for different reasons. And here, once again, is another one of those dynamic moments. So there's going to be a lost person in here. And I didn't mean to walk on the table just then, but I'm trying to get away from her to get some space to bottle her. And you'll notice she's doing the spins. There she is. There's the stab. And she's down. And it looks easy, doesn't it? But trust me, folks. There are some parts of this game where I must have repeated 30 attempts on a bottle throw. And it was in that church as well. You know the church where those 3 fire guys turn up for the first time? And they chase you down. I hate the fire enemies, I really do, because they're just dickheads, and they've got these dodgy grabs that seem to run endlessly. Really dangerous. Ooh, so, once again, because of the dynamic nature of this game, there are enemies outside this door now that have moved up the street. That guy has an axe, which is fantastic, because it means we can replenish the axes. And I need to talk about that. So, the axes in the first game were generally a one-hit kill on everything. There was very few things that could survive an axe. You could kill a keeper with 1 axe blow. That's how powerful they were. They were these one-hit but they broke kind of weapons, get-out-of-jail cards, and I loved that mechanic. Whereas in this game, they've given them upgrades. So if you invest your gel into those melee attacks, you can increase your damage tenfold and get way, way more destructive. But all that does is it makes people not upgrading suffer. Because unfortunately, we're stuck with an axe that doesn't work the same. And this guy saw me again, so once again, folks, if you don't want to have to contend with bottle issues, just don't get seen and stealth people. That was a mistake. I didn't mean to pick up the gel. I wanted the axe. But now we've got the axe, we can laugh. And all we're going to be doing now, guys, is moving through the streets, going to the areas where I know the ammo is, getting some of the parts, getting a second pistol, explaining the bullshit that concerns the second pistol, and then getting on with the game. And this is going to be 2 37-minute videos that are all the same chapter. So that's over an hour of this chapter. It's very long. But it's only long because I'm doing stuff to set me up for the rest of the game. Another thing as well, folks. If you go into that church, you're going to bump into a priest and get rushed by the bad people. I don't know what happens if you go inside this union building here, this visitor centre. I've actually never been inside it. I know that's disgusting of me, but I'm going to do that the next time I play. So instead, we're going to go up onto this roof. But before we do that, we're going to pick up that huge shiny bottle. And if you're new to video games, or if you're new to Evil Within, pretty much everything you can pick up is going to be quite shiny, contrasting against wherever it is laying. And we see another creature there. feasting itself on a poor resident, so I'm going to go and stab it in the brain, and look at that. She stood up and started looking around. They never do this. It's so strange. Whenever they're in that animation of beating the bodies, they usually do that for ages, but for whatever reason, she stopped doing it. And then there's that one guy who's kneeling at the altar later on. So it's 2 people now. I have recorded evidence of them not staying in that animation. I wonder what that is. I wonder if there's some kind of scripting or trigger on this area to make her turn around. Maybe they want you to come from the other side and get the shock of your life. But regardless, use cover, use the shadows, crouch as best as you can, and then take her out. And then break the box with the most flimsy-looking, terrible melee animations ever. Can you believe that Shinji Mikami was in head of the studio that made God Hand with those fantastic crushing impacts? And he's the head of this studio that made this game. And when you break things, the animation looks so floaty and unimmediate and silly. Ugh, what were you doing, dude? What was he doing? It doesn't make sense. It's that weird Japanese jank, and it still exists. But the crouching's an important mechanic to explain. So, crouching makes you move slower, but it also makes you nice silent. It lowers your visibility, it makes you more difficult to see, and at the greater distances, it gives you a lot of power to get around a lot of areas. Once again, they've put upgrades in this game where the stealth mechanically gets better. You move faster while you do it, you become even quieter, so there's no chance of anybody turning around from hearing you, and you also, it makes you harder to see. So if you use the upgrades on the stealth, you can pretty much crouch walk as fast as the normal walk, and you'll never get spotted. And as much as I think that's kind of nice for the people who need it, I'm not a big fan of augmenting a character's natural abilities. I think the upgrades should be to give him tools and options that he didn't have before. You know, I think it always works better that way, where you gain things that you wouldn't expect it to be something that you would need, but it's so different and interesting that it changes how you play, and it's something you really like. Like, I believe you can get a running execution in this game, and I've seen people do it. They run behind the enemies and they jump and stab them in the head, and it looks amazing. That's something that I think is kind of cool, because it's such a different tool. But just making fundamentals stronger is one of those mechanics that I always find to be quite lazy. And the whole axe thing is a little bit frustrating, because I saved an axe through the firewalk section so that I could use it on the boss that comes up afterwards, the priest boss. And you know exactly the fight that I mean, because you fight one thing and then you fight 2 more things at the same time. Well, on that one thing, I wanted to hit it like I did in the first game with an axe and skip it completely. And it didn't even register, I don't think. I might have hit it on the helmet, which I believe their helmets are armoured, so that might have been why that didn't work. But I saved that axe through the fire and the flames, and I was really, really pissed off at that section, and I saved it because I gritted my teeth to get through because I knew it would be worth it, and then I didn't end up bloody needing it, which is really silly, but it happens, you know. So that right there, very important, what we just did. We've just picked up a broken sniper rifle. This rifle is a godsend. It's going to make the last boss a lot easier. It's going to make the Hell Priest a lot easier. And it's just going to make your life easier. If you want to hit things from a distance and get immunity and kill them quickly, this is the tool of the trade. However, because this is on Nightmare, the ammo in this difficulty is so scarce. I think I've only found 2 sets of rifle ammunition from playing through the main game. I haven't gone rummaging or gone doing anything crazy, but finding ammo in this game is way rarer than almost anything else. And I'm talking not in these big open sections. These big open sections you'll find a lot. But in the standard, path of the game, the more linear levels, you barely find ammunition. Instead, you find gunpowder, and it makes you want to make the ammunition. So the rifle takes, I think, 8 gunpowder per shot, which is a lot, but it's totally worth it. If you're going to use your gunpowder on bullets, use it on shells for your shotgun, and use it on rifle rounds. They're the 2 weapons that will make all the difference. And I don't know if you're as confused as I was just here, but I'd never seen this dynamic trigger before. I came towards this opening, a Haunted ran into it, and I don't know where she went. So I crouch through there, I go into the bushes, which is a mechanic I'm going to explain as well, and I can't find her, and I don't know where she's gone, and I'm in danger because she can come out at any way, but I couldn't see where she went. So I'm just going to come onto the roof, and we're going to get rid of this one. But the bushes is a really interesting mechanic, and I like it a lot. Any patch of grass that has bushes, you can walk inside it as if there's no collision on it, and your character will get this interesting looking, like, whited out and like filter on him. And when this happens, it means that you can't be seen. You are hidden in the foliage, and you can't be seen. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to do all kinds of fantastical stealth stuff. I have a really fun section later on where I'm just sat in a bush baiting people and stabbing them in the head, and it works incredibly well because it's such a loose mechanic. It's not cover, it's very amorphous. You can do what you want in there. It's up to you. You control it, and it's very powerful. But here's me bringing up the map. Do you see that green in the top left? That is signifying where the broken rifle part is. So when we're going to go and fix the sniper rifle to make it a functioning weapon, that's where we're going to be going. But we get a save point just then. We're going to be investigating the resonance. I'm apparently trying to put my map on, checking out the rogue signal. So, a little bit of backstory here. When I first played the game, I didn't understand what to do with these ghosts, because for whatever reason, when I came close to the ghosts, it didn't give me any kind of prompt to put on the resonator, whatever that fucking weird tool is that you use, the bloody walkie-talkie thing with all the buttons. It didn't give me an option to do that, so I didn't know that you had to tune that to the right frequency and it would work and everything. So I just walked around here wondering what was happening. So when I came back after playing the game and understanding what that tool does, I wanted to see what this led to. And I'm going to do a little bit of the side quest, because I know that the side quest tells you about an armory somewhere, and it turns out the armory that it tells you about is the one we raided at the beginning of the video. So, you don't have to follow everything that I'm going to be doing after getting this crossbow coming up, but you really want to pick up the crossbow because it's one of the best weapons in the game. So, I'm giving them a big wide berth here, and I'm doing it for a very good reason. Stealthing through that area from where I was is more difficult than walking slowly around it in a circuitous route. I'm going to show you the circuitous route, and you're going to get past there without an issue. There's going to be a little bit of a scripted moment where when you pick the crossbow up, everything comes towards you because a car alarm goes off. But don't worry, we're also going to take a wide berth again and get around it just as effectively. And then we're going to be pushing forward and getting some new stuff. But here's a dude over here who has an axe. Remember that that's an axe, because if you use this and you need to get a replacement, there's going to be one here. But if you instance the world at all, it's going to disappear. And the reason I know this is when you go into the weird sawmill place, the place where Lily's hiding, and you fight those three creatures, when you go outside and kill those three creatures, if you go back inside, the guy you kill that drops the axe will have disappeared. That's what I'm going to do in this walkthrough. I think I use the axe on one of the creatures, and then I go back to find another one, and it's not there anymore. That's kind of cool too. If you see a big bin like that with a gaping opening, you can go up to it and put your arm in it, and you can get weapons parts, you can get ammunition, you can get gunpowder, and you can also get a rock, which is crap. Because it doesn't do anything, it's kind of that you fucked up one. The good news, and the evidence that this was not directed by Shinji Mikami, is you don't pull out a grenade and it kills you. Because in the first game, there was a lot of shit like that, and this game doesn't have any of that. They've cleaned all of that stuff up. And that's going to be one of the things you notice the most, when you play this. For some reason, this game has almost no traps. The first game was a giant trap inside of a trap, doing trapception, watching Inception, like dreaming of traps. That's all the game was. There was those weird ones with the delayed sensor that span around. You had to stop it in the red zone, and you had to press it early, and if you didn't, you instantly died. There was just the trips that killed you instantly because they exploded. There was an entire level devoted to crazy carnival-esque traps, right? That weird workshop place with spikes everywhere? The first game had a definite obsession with traps. This game doesn't have any. The only traps you're going to bump into in this game are traps that when you trip them, they set up explosive bolts in front of you, which is pointless because when you trip them, it tells you that, there's going to be a trap. It's not like you bump into the trap and you die like you did in the first game, which happened all the time. In this game, it's just like, oh, I just triggered some explosive bolts. I'll go defuse those and have explosive bolts for free. So, ironically, in this game, whenever you see one of those tripwires, you want to trip it so it sets up the explosive bolts so you can get free ammunition. And I think the only other time there's a trap is with the barbed wire, but I've never touched the barbed wire, so I don't know what that's about. But it's a massive shift in how the game's focused, because you never have to worry that when you enter an area it's going to suddenly start beeping, you're going to panic and not know where you are, not understand where the trap is, and then immediately get separated from your torso. That happened all the time in the first game. This game has none of that. They really did tone down a lot of the bullshit, and there's a part of me that really likes that because it makes it a more enjoyable experience and a more cohesive playthrough. But at the same time, a lot of that bullshit was Japanese design, and I kind of like the goofy Japanese design. It's my favourite kind. A little warning here as well, guys. Do not touch that door handle. If you touch that door handle, it will put you into a mandatory encounter, and I wanted to avoid it. Additionally, when we move around here, be very quiet coming near this bin. There is a lost that is underneath the car where that glowing signal is, and you can see her hand just then, but I saw it too late. Or saw his hand, sorry. And then he gets out of the car. I miss my bottle because he screams. I wait for him to reset, and then I bottle him again. And there's the attack. When you initiate that attack, you get iframes. So it doesn't matter if you go through his arm when he swings when you're doing it, because you'll be fine. However, that animation where he swings when he's blinded will kill you if it hits you. And if you're wondering, when you walk around with HP like mine, you can take one attack. Generally, if you get grabbed, you'll die. If you get hit, you'll die. But eventually, you'll take a hit that puts you down to 1 pixel worth of HP, but you'll be fine, and you'll regenerate. But it just makes it easier for you as a player to understand when you take damage this way, because your HP... I kind of feel like the HP in this game is kind of silly. You can take way too much of a beating for a survival horror game. The whole point in survival horror, in my opinion... There she is, that's where she went. That must be the one that was dynamic. And I pushed the spawn, she had to get in place, and then I never triggered it. But the good news is we can move away, we can hide, and she'll leave. As I keep consulting my map there to show you the 2 zones we're moving towards. And I'm just making sure I'm in the right direction here. And because it's on PC, it all loads really quickly, so it's awesome. And we can keep pushing forwards, picking up bottles, and moving onwards. So what were we talking about? We did the bushes. I mentioned Silent Hill Downpour. Because don't you walk around in a town in that game, and it's very similar to that, only this game's really good and that game's not so good. But let's talk about the enemies. So the enemies in this game, I think, are a little bit less fair than they were in the first game. I know that sounds kind of strange when I talk about bullshit and things. But in the first game, the enemies were devious, right? They'd chase you, they'd do an attack, but they'd have a very definitive rest period, where they couldn't seemingly immediately go into another attack. In this game, they seem to have got rid of that. That might be just my nostalgia speaking, and I might not be true on that one, but I remember that they tried to grab you, they missed, they reset, they tried to chase you, they'd do a punch, they stopped, well, the grabs in the first game went forever, right? They could just infinitely chase you, so you had to stop it or put something between you and them. Once again, this is another dynamic spawn right now. I'm not entirely sure why this is happening, but here it is, and I'm gaining a bit of a spot of bother. I know that that's a monster that can stand up, so I'm going to do this, and boom. Instant kill with bottles. Bottle god tier, make sure you use the bottles. But there is a second creature just there, so I'm going to move towards the box, and I'm going to probably go towards where the bush is, and you'll see the bush effect I talked about. There's the filter telling us that we can't be seen, and if he comes this way, I'm going to stab him in the head. But there he goes. That is the animation where they look both ways, where they literally turn slightly as well. So that's one of the only animations that if you're behind them, they can spin around and see you. So you need to be aware. You want to look for the deliberate look left and right, or the weird looking left and right weird one. And then there's this, which is, he was going to do a running like facial animation there, but he didn't get a chance to do it because he was clipping on the door, and I stabbed him in the head. But once again, guys, I don't know if you have to come here. Or you can go and get the crossbow first, and then come here and get the shotgun after. That might have been a better rhythm, but I don't really know this level very well, because it's very big, and this was quite new to me at the time. So once you speak to these people, it's going to give you the last resonance area. I've trimmed that out, and then on your way out of here, you're going to get attacked again by another creature, which is kind of unfortunate, but what can you do? So wait for him to reset, bottle him, and then slash his throat. So there goes that guy, and now we can get out of this house. But the enemies in this game, I feel like sometimes they attack too quickly. Especially when you consider that you can't really run away in this game the same as you could in the first game, because in the first game, your stamina regenerated really well, so you could kind of keep people kited the entire time. You can do that in this game, but it's much easier to get screwed. And we're coming up on a bad trap here, guys. Don't walk this path. This path right now has a lovely set of shotgun shells that are there as bait, but there's about 3 or 4 lost sat around here and in the grass, and the moment you pick it up, they're going to stand up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprint. I'm going to sprint past all of them as they're standing up, because when they're doing that, they're not aware. They're only aware once they're stood, and then from there they have to trigger seeing you, and because I sprinted, they didn't see me. But I believe that there's a lost underneath this car as well, so be careful of him. And that guy's coming this way, he's all inquisitive and shit, and he does know where I am, so he's moving. He's not certain, but he knows. And you can tell when they're going to do this, guys, because they'll do a little lean to one side, tilt their head, and then they'll do the other side, and then they'll start shuffling towards you. That means that they think there's something there, but they're not sure what. And then I triggered him. I threw a bottle just then. Did you see what happened? He broke the bottle on the back edge of the swing, so he never threw anything. And that's the kind of janky bullshit that I really disagree with. But the good news is, I managed to climb over the fence, and I'm going to walk around the side of here, and hopefully, we're not going to get into any more trouble. Because the music's going to simmer down, and I'm going to just walk around here, and then we're going to continue onwards. Here's some bushes just in case, and I know exactly where I am now. We're near the car park where the second pistol is. And up there is a bottle to replace the one that we broke. But the level design here is so sublime, because it keeps a constant atmosphere. It's always tense, it's always shifting, it's always changing. Really, really fun section. This is probably the biggest achievement I think The Evil Within 2 has, because there's nothing like this. The only thing I can compare to this is The Last of Us, and even then, in The Last of Us, it's still way linear than this. This is way more dynamic, and you're not as capable in this game as you are in The Last of Us either, which is unfortunate. But great games either way. Great genre to be a fan of at the moment. We've got some super solid survival horror stuff. But back to the enemies anyhow, as I go towards the auto repair shop. Be careful of anything sat down like that, because it generally means it's going to get up. There's a lot of interesting playing on your expectations. But as long as you get the save points, you'll be okay, guys. If you're playing on classic mode, once again, you have to pick where you're going to save on this area. You are watching me do this without dying. So everything that you've seen in this video has been all on the same life. So if I can do it, you can do it too. And the more that you get from this chapter, the easier the rest of the game will be. So do all your trials, get all your stuff, then drop a save, and classic mode won't seem as bad. But we're going to be opening up this area, so we have to use the resonator. And boom, once you hit the switch in here, it's going to raise the car, and then we're going to go underneath, and we're going to get even more loot, and bump into some more creatures, and get a little bit more story, if that's your thing. And then they're telling me to go back towards that, which I don't go back towards. But you can do it if you want to. I was just wanting to get through the game. Anyway, the enemies. So the enemies, they have this aggression in them, and this capability of rushing you down, and they do... Remember how in the first game, they tried to grab you, they tried to do that standard punch, and then they do that weird thing where they run, and then they do like a leg kick. Can you remember that, where they sprinted towards you a little bit, and then they did the weakest kick, but it still killed you because it was a Kumu difficulty? Oh, and of course, this spawns a witch, so we're going to get to use our axe on her, and we're going to stab her in the head. In this game, the enemies do this thing where they do 2 punches, and both of these punches have the most forward momentum ever. It's kind of insane. So they will be walking forward while they're punching, covering massive distance, and it's very difficult to get away from if you're trying to back up. You need to sprint away from it. And then the other one they do is this running right hook, which is really fast, and it's got super good range, and the moment they stop doing it, they can do it again. And there seems to be no cooldown period for these techniques. And you don't notice it too much with the first of the Lost, because you generally kill them before they've had a chance to do shit. But later on, when the fire guys turn up, or if you take on those white goo guys, those ones are ridiculous. They're just constantly attack, every opening they get. So, although in this game you won't face the bullshit you did in the first game, where they had automatic weapons, and they threw dynamite, and all that other nonsense, you do come up against these moments where they just do endless running attacks at you, and it becomes really frustrating, especially the fire guy, because the fire guy has a charge, and the charging move has incredible tracking. He can literally track on right angles. It's fucking stupid. And then he has a running grab, which is slow, it's very telegraphed, but if he grabs you, he just busts your head, and it's got mad range. Like, there's a couple moves where if you're in close proximity and you're trying to kite them, it becomes very difficult with the way they've designed these attacks, because they've designed the attacks to catch you as you evade. And it's not quite as egregious as something in you know, like Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3, where you roll on an attack because it starts happening and it's just slow enough to get you just as you finish rolling. It's not quite that tier, but a lot of it seems to be movement considered. And because you are so much slower in this game, sometimes the best option is to throw a bottle at them or shoot them in the face with the shotgun, because the shotgun is fantastic. But once again, I'm talking about the sawn-off. The normal shotgun can suck a dick. Because I've got footage, point-blank range, shooting the normal shotgun, and the enemy didn't even get hit. For some reason, the gun didn't work. It glitched out. And it was really frustrating. That's not mentioning, I have footage of me shooting a Lost 3 times in their head with a shotgun to kill it, and then I use the sawn-off and it dies in 2. Not only does it die in 2, but the first shot completely stuns it out of an animation with the sawn-off, and then the other shotgun doesn't. So, I don't know what they did with that second shotgun, but I am not impressed, and I use it for most of this guide, so I feel like I got robbed and I wasted a lot of ammunition. So that's why I'm on this video telling you folks, use the sawn-off, because it just works so much better up close. Telling you guys, it's so good, it's really good. But this guy busts out the vent, so I'm going to stand over here. Remember how I said if you can find a hole to climb into, you'll never ever get attacked in here? You'll also get to see, with the extended FOV, we can see through Sebastian's shoulder when we move through these zones, because the camera was potentially not intended to be this far back. So that's why you can see through his geometry. But he goes through this door, he's going to go walking into there, I'm going to follow him from behind. There's the look left and the look right, and there's the stab. And I love how this enemy, it's got a face in its side. One of them has got like a really creepy looking face moulded into its back. But that's the end of the first part of Resonances. I will see you in part 2. Another 37 minutes of this amazing game. So thank you for watching, and you take care now.